All right, well, let's get into some Dharma. There's so much stuff out there that our minds could be getting into. Luckily, we're into this liberation of the mind and compassion for all beings type of stuff. And I love being part of this group and being able to hang out with you. So, warm welcome to the Mo Sangha and all those connecting via YouTube. Thanks to Yeshe's hard work there, and thanks to the group coming together in the name of this real authentic Dharma stuff. So today we'll continue to read from this really precious book by Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche. Some of you may know as the father of Migyur Rinpoche. Of course, he's very popular now with the Turgar Institute. And really brought awareness practice out there, actually, to a lot of people. I remember we watched a video of a TED Talk where he was pointing out instructions during the TED Talk. Thought that was pretty cool. So let's listen to what his father has to say. Well, if you looked that up the Migyur Dorje TED Talk, you should be able to locate it. I don't think he gave too many of those. Yeah, and so this is translated by Lama Eric Pema Kunsang, who's been in this field for a while. I think has a really great translation here. All right, so yesterday we kind of started the meditation with resting in pure presence. So if we're going to read this book, we might as well know what it's about. It's about our Buddha nature. It's the essential premise, you could say. Thank you, Yeshe. Got the Migyur Rinpoche video in case you're interested. Migyur Rinpoche. But so basically, if I sit here with my eyes open, there's a presence here. And that presence isn't confined to internal and external. It permeates all of reality. It's the presence of our mind. And so whether there are thoughts right now, emotional energy, the body or the environment, the four foundations of mindfulness are all permeated by cognizance, consciousness. Now the words can throw us off because you think consciousness and you add possibly presupposition there, or connotations that we might be familiar with. If we say it's all mind, you may again think of, you may presuppose something. If we say everything is cognizance, then again you may not be able to access with these words. Or if we say everything is awareness, but these are just words pointing, okay, to something that you can recognize, and then leave that word. Just like a name tag, we can peel it off and throw it away. We don't really need that word as much as the recognition. This is completely outside of thoughts and conceptual conclusions. In fact, I would say recognize the nature of your mind and then try to figure stuff out. But don't try to figure this out intellectually, okay? But if you can recognize what all these masters and thousands of years of Dharma are talking about, it's not just a kind of fable or some feel-good talk. Your pure presence is here. And this consciousness, mind, awareness, whatever you want to call it, is within everything. We can say living intelligence, right? Just like in a dream, no matter if you're dreaming of heaven or hell, it's always going to be mind. So we can actually rest in that aspect rather than getting caught in the energy of our mind, in the display of this whole experience. We can rest in the nature of mind. And then things will start to naturally smooth, soften the samsaric patterning, and exhausting those cycles. Yes. And so doing nothing doesn't mean we just sit here and do nothing all day and don't even move. It means that we leave our experiences unaltered. We don't need to overthink. We don't need to get caught up in fear and contrivances and things like that. We don't need to conceptualize what's happening. We can trust that if we leave it, there's revelation. Answers are there. Wisdom is there. So is compassion. So that's just my little introduction before we read the text. I'll get into it now. Let's see what Tulku is saying, okay? So, our basic nature is in no way different from that of a Buddha. It's like pure space, which, whether is obscured by clouds or is cloudless and clear sky, remains the same in its basic essential nature. But if you pretend that your nature is already enlightened, you don't progress along the path of removing obscurations, then your enlightened nature doesn't become realized. Therefore, we must truly consider what is actual, what the facts are. Do we have obscurations or not? If you see that there are still obscurations, there's no way to avoid having to remove them by gathering the two accumulations. So remember, we're in the context of Vajrayana here. So merit and wisdom are the two accumulations, and here we're concerned with accumulating and cultivating and hopefully stabilizing the mind. So, and many of the people who are connected to this group do practice tantric methods, and for example, accumulating merit through mantra recitation or through giving the dana they call it in Pali, I think, maybe even Sanskrit. Basically, generosity. And then, just through kindness and compassion, one can cultivate merit. And this is conventional, okay? This is on the conventional level. In Dzogchen, we're not really worried about cultivating merit because just resting in awareness, you will naturally cultivate merit because you're kind of in harmony. You're in this flow state. And so your compassion is so strong then you don't have to worry about cultivating anything. So if our nature wasn't already enlightened, we couldn't awaken to it no matter how hard we tried. Buddha nature cannot be fabricated. See how that kind of contradicts this idea of cultivating or accumulating merit and wisdom? It says here Buddha nature cannot be fabricated. So no matter what we cultivate, we're not going to be able to create this awareness. The awareness is always here with us, whether there are clouds or not, just like he just said. So our nature is primordially enlightened, but at present our ordinary body speech and discursive thinking obscures it. The nature of our mind, Buddha nature, is like space itself, but it is space obscured by clouds. The whole point of Dharma practice is to remove the clouds and allow the actualization of what already is, the awakened state of mind, the Buddha nature. And I would say the awakened mind includes the Buddha essence and nature. Nature is only svabhavana, the kind of rigpa, vidya, the awareness, the cognizant aspect. Buddha essence is emptiness. So if you can scroll back up a little bit there, this is a very encouraging kind of sentence, right? It should be. The whole point of Dharma practice is to remove the clouds and allow the actualization of what already is. If you can manage to trust that, you have a wonderful Sangha here. You have a guide, somebody who's willing to search and find whatever you need if I don't have it already. You can have the awakened state of mind here in this lifetime. In fact, you don't even have to wait your whole life, in my opinion, to start accessing that. And most of all, you can start to get out of the hopeless cycles. So it may not feel like you're enlightened at first, but at least you're not in that kind of like, wow, the only way to get rid of this is to end my life, or, to like life is never going to be better, kind of very pessimistic nihilism that can get into our mind through the negative bias. So this gives you another face to life, which for many of us who grew up without like happy childhood and all that stuff, that is really good news, and it's good news for all those people out there who may have gone through serious, heavy stuff where it seems hopeless, but you actually can find some freedom. So the nature of our mind is primordially pure, primordially enlightened. The way to remove our two obscurations is to train and condition virtue in the unconditioned training in original wakefulness, the two accumulations. The train and conditioned virtue is looks like our ethics and things like that. Basically, that's why people become monastics and they take bodhisattva vows and all kinds of precepts, because they're training in virtue. But my thing is it doesn't work. I see people practicing compassion and so-called training in the West, and they're not becoming more compassionate. They're just faking it. They're learning how to fake it many times. I'm just being honest here. And so on the inside, they have very destructive thoughts about people, but on the outside, they say, "Oh, hi, how you doing today?" Da, da, da. Me, I've never really been like that. I can respect people that are like that. It's fine. We all have our coping mechanisms, but yeah, we can access our natural compassion where we actually really want to be nice to people, just because it's natural, not because it's what culture is telling us to do. Yeah, and by the way, living a farce like that removes you from your personality. You're no longer acting like the person that you are. You're just kind of acting like you think people want you to be. And to a certain extent, we all got to get along, of course, so we can act cordial. But when you're in family situations, even in the store or something, and somebody's kind of being kind to you, but even though underneath they're not feeling very kind to you. This can happen with family and friends and communities. Well, that doesn't feel good for anybody. Yeah. But There's a middle way. Sometimes we're having a bad day and we can't be kind to everybody, and we just try our best, right? To be nice. And sometimes it doesn't even have to do with the person. So there's a middle ground here. But really, if you're having a bad day and you're in tune with your natural compassion, then believe it or not, you'll still be nice to people, even though you're having a bad day. Yeah. Like if I was having a terrible day, found out a bunch of news or whatever, I wouldn't just start being mean to this cat or yelling around this cat. I wouldn't want to do that. Scare her, make her think that I'm mad at her or something like that. So really tuning into your natural compassion is well worth it. Excuse me. So we awaken to enlightenment by recognizing and fully realizing the primordially pure essence already present as our nature. Okay, so there I think some of these words, essence and nature, are being used in different contexts. But actually, that makes sense. We awaken to enlightenment by recognizing and fully realizing emptiness, which is already present in awareness. Yeah, makes sense. So that's how to be awakened, to how to be an awakened Buddha, even though the enlightened state is actually already present. Imagining or forming a thought construct of enlightenment doesn't make you enlightened. It's the same as when you are really hungry and you look at a plate of food and try to imagine what it tastes like. Does it work to then imagine, I'm eating the food, I'm no longer hungry? You can think this for a very long time, forever in fact, but it still doesn't dispel your hunger. Once you actually put the food in your mouth, it tastes delicious and your hunger is satiated. It's the same with experience. Experience only occurs in a direct way, in practical reality, not through a theory about taste. If your meditation practice is merely an exercise in imagining and keeping something in your mind, it is only a theory and not direct experience. Yeah, and this is essentially what we have on a lot of online forums is people imagining enlightenment, talking about it, thinking about enlightenment. We've had a handful of people come to the group and explain to us how they are enlightened. Um, okay, or they know the answers to all the conceptual stuff, but when you ask them to join in the 10-minute meditation, they cannot do it. To me, that's a clear sign of fooling yourself, of thinking enlightenment rather than realizing enlightenment. You have to rest in enlightenment. You have to really verify that with yourself honestly. You can't just think that you're enlightened and know all the answers. There are many intelligent people on the earth that can figure out Buddhism and Dharma and figure all the concepts out. It's pretty simple. You take the time to do it. But realization is a whole different thing. We need both. Logic is great and intellect is wonderful. But you cannot stop there in Dzogchen. So you often hear the teaching that all things are empty and devoid of self-entity, that there is no personal identity in the individual, and that all phenomena are devoid of any self-nature. Simply hearing this, or even intellectually understanding it, doesn't make much of a difference. The only way to actualize it is by recognizing our nature, the self-existing wakefulness that is naturally empty. It's by experiencing natural emptiness that we become free, not by imagining emptiness. So earlier in the beginning, we sat in pure presence together. There are no boundaries to this. You don't have to if you're telling yourself, I'm not ready for this or something like that, please release that. Your mind is purely present here right now. And you can familiarize with this. When those thoughts start to come that bother you, or they sink you into a kind of depression or anxiety or insecurity, let those thoughts come and go. Stop giving them so much validity. We really do. We give them so much power, don't we? We let the thoughts into our house. We serve them tea. We even give them a bed to stay in. And how long are they going to stay in the house of our mind? And have we tested it? What does it look like when we release a thought? Even though it's so tempting and we have such good reasons to hold these thoughts, what does it look like when we release them? It looks nice and clear and wakeful and free. Not a problem around, no problem. But there's a part of us that wants the problems. It's not a kind of, no one should be scolded for this. It's not bad, but we lean into some of this stuff. Mhm. Okay, so we may understand that mind in itself is without visible form, sound, taste, smell, or texture, but understanding this is not the real thing. It's only an idea about how it really is. This is not enough. If it was, you could simply say, I'm a Buddha, and you would be a Buddha. But honestly, it doesn't happen that way. See, sorry, Reddit. Can't just say you're a Buddha and think that you're a Buddha. That'd be sweet. We'd all get it pretty quick. But you have to look outside of the thinking mind into the cognizance that permeates the thinking. Look how you can be aware of your thinking. That shows that you don't have to be isolated into that dimension, into that thought bubble of electricity. And also, insecurities, anxieties, emotional energies, you do not have to isolate yourself into them and feel trapped by them. They can be a little energy within the vastness of your mind. They don't have to flood you. And then it can be quite nice actually to feel sad or any of those feelings that we normally kind of run from. They can be nice because you're making friends now with these people that you've had beef with for a while, right? These people, I say these people, but it's your states of consciousness, your emotional waves. And they're like the neighbors that we never get along with, but we live right next door to them. So really, I encourage you all to make peace. I know it's hard. Some of these feelings are incredibly uncomfortable. And you may ask, why do I have to feel like this? And things like that. And why does it have to be like that? But if you can employ the patience, sit with it, be with it, your sort of vindication is waiting for you around the corner. Your giant gift is waiting for you if you can manage to sit or be with what is. When I say sit, I mean be with it. Okay, that's just another word for saying be with it. Now, we do have our 10-minute meditations where you can sit, stand, walk, or lay down and be with it. Okay? We had one person who would walk in circles and do a walking meditation right on camera. And by the way, if you feel a certain way about audio or camera or reaching out, I encourage you also maybe start to explore going beyond your insecurities and things like that. Let yourself feel insecure because underneath that little feeling that you're holding is your Buddhahood. It's really important for me to hear from everybody. I don't need to see everybody, but um, seeing and hearing from people is it's wonderful, And there should be no reason anybody should feel scared in this group, particularly because none of that judging is going on, and if it is, they can keep it to themselves. And then also, we're not getting into like sexual stuff here, where people are sitting there, kind of making those comments to each other and everything. That's not. We're just focusing on meditation. You can do your sexual stuff outside of the group, or if you have attraction to people, and you can do that outside of the group. That way, we keep it safer in here for people to speak, show themselves, to share their stories, which is important, the most important. We want to hear from each other. And that includes people on YouTube. Share your story. That comment section is there, and we will read it. All right. So the awakened state, our self existing wakefulness, does not need to be fabricated or altered in any way at all. It is natural emptiness. Empty means free of visible form, sound, smell, taste, or texture. The ness is the knowing, cognizant quality. We need to see that this is so, that it is not only empty, but also naturally cognizant. And we need to not only see this and experience it, but also to grow used to it. Okay, so to get used to it. I don't know if you grow used to it. Like, I'm not a Virginia creeper vine. I don't grow on used to the fence. All right, so growing accustomed to this clears away the obscurations, the negative deeds, and the past karma, and destroys delusion at its root. Now, that's true. What they're saying by growing used to it means familiarizing. There's no growing, though. There's an ungrowing. There's an uprooting happening there. We have to be clear about this. So that's why nowadays, if you were to ask me, using words like cultivating, fabricating, growing, whatever words that make you think that you're doing something, this maybe not so beneficial actually. But here's a very important point. If you can go back up a little bit, it says here we need to not only see it but familiarize with it, right? So those are the key points in our group. That if you get introduced to the nature of mind, now familiarize with it, okay? And it says familiarizing with it does what? We'll keep on scrolling. It clears away obscurations, negative deeds, and past karma, and destroys delusion at its root. That's a very telling sentence right there. The more you rest in awareness, it's like I've been saying, there's self liberation, self harmony, self resolution happening, and we can trust that if I let this be, it will self harmonize. It will be fine. That is the trickiest, hardest part because we're so used to um, kind of antidotes and all this always applying, and we always need to do something. We always need to get somewhere else. But I'm sorry to tell you that they've been lying to you. You need to get here, then handle your business. Handle your business from a place of presence and openness, rather than fixation and discursion and really being out of whack. I always have to smile a little bit, like when I see these people in these businesses, they're all stressed and running around. We got to do this, we got to do that. And they're just fumbling around and really bumping into each other and not really saving much time that way, and really not doing things efficiently and wisely either. When everybody's rushing around and frantic, that is not really how to get stuff done. And your relationships suffer as well, by the way. I mean, I just talked to somebody that I love a lot. And the whole time I was talking to them, they were rushing to get off the phone. You could hear it in their voice. Like, oh, yeah, okay, and I just slowed down, like, okay, well, probably better to go now. Probably should go now. I was like, okay, have a beautiful day. Wow. Imagine just bzzz, like you got a drone in your head, flying around, bzzz, flying your head around, bzzz, and then you're not even controlling it. Somebody else has got the controller. Oh, that's sad. But oh man, that's sad. But there's freedom. Don't worry. Mm. But why not start clear and fresh in this presence? When you love somebody, when you hug them, when you talk to them, why not be fully here? Why talk to somebody and then your mind is somewhere else while you're talking to them? Okay. So it also says here destroys delusion at its root. I'm pretty sure they're talking about that seventh egoic consciousness, the conditioned self itself, the notorious, the infamous conditioned self. Um, because when you let that be within your awareness and you see it, see what's happening here is that, yeah, you have cycles of trauma, um, from sadness to anxiety to even joy and excitement. Um, all that will be harmonized. So you have those cycles, but at the root, you have this me. I'm experiencing anxiety or insecurities or trauma. I'm having this. And that I'm is also a plasticity, it's also a pattern. And so when you let that be, I'm feeling this way. Where is the I'm? And you just let it be. Then all of a sudden, even that taproot of samsara, the very essence of all of our suffering, that that dividing self from other, is also uprooted. Mhm. See, it says here it destroys delusion at its root, but earlier it was talking about growing. So which one is it? Are we destroying roots or are we growing? So that is how to become enlightened, and that is the root of blessings. Simply understanding how enlightenment is doesn't truly enlighten. Okay, I think we can pause there and pick it back up next time. Very important. I don't know how many of you have dealt with that particular obscuration, but if you are maybe stuck in your thinking too much about freedom, about liberation of your mind, then remember it goes beyond the thinking, okay? hmm So thank you so much, yeah, for your presence today and everybody who's following along in this text with us. So any comments, questions, sharing? Everybody okay, huh? All right, well, I hope this full moon silence means that you're doing good.